That would be Mr. Jose Rodriguez. ADOT Tucson
Present.
District. Sorry about that.
Morning, Rod Lane, present.
Tohono O'odham.
Good morning, this is Patricia, present.
Pascua Yaqui Tribe. Okay.
I'm sorry, this is Jason Bahi. I couldn't.
Thank you, Mr. Bahi.
I'm present.
City of South Tucson. City of Tucson.
Diana Alarcon, present.
Pima County.
Robin Raines, present as well.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm here too.
Pima County.
Ana Olivares here and Catherine Skinner here also.
Okay. ADOT Transportation Planning Division.
Mark Hoffman, present.
Tucson Airport Authority.
Scott Robidoux, present.
Suntran. I believe it. They are here.
Davita Miller is here for Suntran.
Okay, thank you. University of Arizona.
Mark Novak, present.
Pima County DEQ.
Hi, this is Ursula Nelson. I'm here.
TO Nation San Javier District. Don't see them here. Okay, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, in-kind reporting. Mr. Casartano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you are paid with federal funds, please let us know now. Okay. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAG, RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Casartano. Well, moving on to item number 3, approval of the March 3rd, 2021 meeting summary. This is an action item. Is there a motion? Anyone?
Hello, Mr. Chair, this is Ana.
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion to approve the meeting summary from our last meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
This is Beth. I make a second.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, any questions, discussions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed
Aye.
signify by saying nay. Sorry. Okay, the motion carries. The ayes have it. Motion is approved. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, review and approval of PAG's draft FY 2022-26 Transportation Improvement Program. Mr. Brown.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce this item. This is an action item. Since August, we have been working with PAG committees to develop the draft fiscal year 22 through 26 TIP. This is a 10-month process, and the memo for this item describes over 12 meetings that have been held with various committees to date. Most recently, the PAG Management Committee reviewed the project lists. The draft tip was posted in the TPC packet for review on March 18th. The draft tip is based on project lists approved by respective subcommittees or responsible agencies pursuant to each funding source. As with previous tips, the full document is updated and built from the current adopted tip. All elements such as the Title VI analysis, Transportation Performance Measures Assessment, and the Air Quality Conformity Analysis fulfill federal requirements for tip development. In terms of next steps, the Management Committee has also been provided a link to the draft and will be asked to recommend approval at the next meeting, which is scheduled for April 7th. A 30-day public comment period, including tip open houses, will commence prior to Regional Council's review of the draft tip. The dates for the virtual tip open houses are scheduled for Tuesday, April 20th, 10 a.m. to noon, and Wednesday, April 21st, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And please note that the midday open house has been moved from Thursday to Tuesday. In the draft that we shared we had a different date, the 22nd, for that midday open house. It's been moved to Tuesday, April 20th, and we'll follow up with more information after this meeting about the open houses. A public hearing to be held at the May PAG Regional Council meeting will be followed by a request for Regional Council approval of the draft tip. Key considerations for this tip include that per the Notice of Funding Availability memo from August, the tip is developed consistent with federal regulations for metropolitan transportation planning. As the TPC chair stated in his March 18th memo, the goal for this tip has been to comply with the direction of the RTA board to meet the RTA's commitments. The RTA financial plan was affirmed by the RTA board chair, the Citizens Accountability for Regional Transportation Authority committee chair, and the RTA Technical Management Committee chair. So before we move into questions and discussion, earlier this week, we received comments from Pima County on the draft tip, with some of these resulting in corrections and changes. Also, through additional review, there are some staff changes as well, and I would like to share those with the TPC. For the recommendation to approve the draft tip, the understanding would be that these modifications will be made. And I do want to thank Ms. Skinner from Pima County and the reviewing team from Pima County for your thorough review and your comments that you shared with us prior to the meeting. That was extremely helpful. So Crystal, if you don't mind putting up the list, please, on screen. I'd like to go through each of those, please. Okay. Thank you very much, Crystal. So if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I will just go line by line just so that everyone is aware of the changes that we are intending to make. Some of them are very minor, but I think it's good that we cover all of them. So at the top, page 71, tip ID 24.20, South Houghton Road widening. The comment is that the program has been accelerated from what is shown, and the modification would be proposed local funding table will be updated to match the schedule as provided by Pima County. The next item, tip ID 33.12, purchase of Sun Shuttle vehicles. The comment is that there were funding differences. Our response is that that was a minor oversight with data entry missing $229,000 of FTA 5307 payment funding. So we'll make that modification. The next item, page 75, tip ID 72.06, Sun Shuttle based transit services. Comment was minor funding differences in fiscal year 23 and 24. The response data entry error will be updated to match. The next item, page 80, tip ID 88.10, Ryan Airfield Airside Auto Road. Comment that this project was not in the packet of TA projects. Our response error, this project should be dropped from the tip as requested by Tucson Airport Authority. The next item, page 81, tip ID 35.14, TIA Air Freight Apron. Comment, this project was not in the packet of TA projects. The response is that the status will be updated. The project is planned and programmed per Tucson Airport Authority. The next item, page 84, tip ID 131.00, 22nd Street, I-10 to Tucson Boulevard. The comment, funding in fiscal year 24 should be local funds and not RTA funds. Response, this is a data entry error and will be updated to match. Page 80, the next item, page 86, tip ID 23.20, Houghton Road, Broadway to Tanca Verde. The comment was funding in fiscal year 26 should be 1.820 of Pima County developer impact fees, not 3.120 of PC DIFO. This is a data entry error and will be updated to match. And numbers are in thousands. So, page 90, tip ID 471, bus replacements. The comment, local funding is different in all years. The response data entry error will be updated to match. The next item, page 92, tip ID 95.06, Suntran Express Service expansion. The comment, funding differences in fiscal years 22 and 23. Response data entry error will be updated to match. We're doing well. We've got maybe half a dozen more. Thank you, everyone. Page 36, paragraph 2. One of the tip open house dates has been changed and needs to be updated. That's consistent with the comments I made during my opening remarks. So this will be updated. Page 36, paragraph 3, the date when the draft conformity analysis was sent needs to change to March 23rd. This will be, the response is that this will be updated. Page 53, paragraph 2, this is another correction to the open house dates. Next page, final 3. Page 62, tip ID 86.06 for fiscal year 24. The project phase for HERF 12R funding should be R instead of C. Our response is that this is a data entry error, will be updated to match. Next item, page 84, tip ID 131.00. Fiscal year 22 funding source should be HERF 12R, not HERF 12.6, to be consistent with the rest of the document. Our response is this is a data entry error, will be updated to match. And finally, page 166, appendix 9, performance measures assessment. 2020 air quality data is now available and will be included in the next draft, and our response will be updated. Mr. Chair, that concludes my review of the corrections and changes to be made to the tip for the comments received from Pima County as well as staff as part of another review process by staff. And with that, I open it up for questions and comments and discussion. At your pleasure, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, guys, any questions for Mr. Brown?
This is Robin. I have a question. Was there a reason why no HSIP projects for 23 and 24 were included in the tip?
I think I'm going to need to ask for some assistance on that one from those familiar with the HSIP program. Paul, are you more familiar with that one? Thank
you. You know, I don't really have an answer for that. We can certainly, you know, I haven't really been involved in moving those HSIP projects forward, so I did not take a particular look for that, the inclusion of those pieces. So that's a good point. We can examine that more closely, and we can, I think, circle back with you in terms of what we found, what might be appropriate to incorporate in there. Otherwise, there does remain the opportunity to incorporate that content through a tip amendment process, so we can also pursue that as necessary.
I guess our preference would be, because there's many projects and they're worth millions of federal dollars, that it would be in the the document. I went through it and found the City of Tucson ones, but given that the city's projects were not there, I'm assuming that we had other HSIP projects that are also not showing.
Have these fundings been approved already, guys? Paul?
I think the 23 and 24 have been approved.
Yes, they have.
Good.
So we can reconcile that and make sure that those items that have been approved are indeed featured in the tip as they should be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes. All right. Any further questions for Mr. Brown?
Yes. Hi, this is Diana. I have two things. One is for downtown links. The bid came in $10 million over. That was shared with PAG over a year ago before we started the project, and that is still not reflected in the tip. And we would like to see that $10 million reflected in the tip, because that's the actual cost to get the project done. And then we had another item which had to do with, help me out here, Robin, I'm forgetting the line item. The traffic signals, there's $750 some odd thousand that's placed in FYI 22, but nothing in the years out. And we would prefer if that 750,000 is spread out over the 5 years versus all in 1 year. We typically get 150,000 funded every year, but for some reason it's all bunched up into 1 year and nothing throughout the rest of the TIP season. So we would like to see those two changes as well.
That's ID number 39+8 on page 87. The Regional Transportation Data Network has 742 in STP in 2022, but nothing in the subsequent years. And under normal circumstances, there are several $100,000 or 150,000 in every single fiscal year.
So if I hear you correctly, you want to spread out that 750 on multiple years?
Well, either that or leave the 750 and then put 150 in each of the subsequent years. The 150 is keeping it afloat, essentially, the whole data network over, each year.
All right, we could definitely look into that. What about the item number 1, the downtown links? Can anybody do a little bit more clarification on that $10 million shortfall?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim DeGrood. What this will require is a TIP amendment, and we would want to take that before the RTA board. I know that the city has presented its request to us previously. I know our executive director has asked that we present it to the board once we have a final guaranteed maximum price. I think that was what we had requested, and we're awaiting that. And once that happens, we'll bring that forward before the board for consideration. It would be handled as a TIP amendment, as it does go beyond the ballot amount, and that is that's the direction we've been given.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeGrood. Any further questions for the committee?
Jose, this is Catherine with the county. I have a couple questions.
Yes, Catherine.
The TIP participation plan that's on page 127, I don't recall us having a specific TIP participation plan in previous documents. Can you kind of give some background on how that got added this time?
Can you go to that page, Mr. Brown?
So Crystal, if you don't mind going to that page, please. Do you mind repeating the page number?
I think it was 127.
Okay, thank you. So my understanding is, so we were reviewing the federal regulations for the TIP development process as we do from time to time, just to make sure nothing's changed and making sure that during our TIP process, we're in full compliance. So we have, as you all know, an adopted public involvement policy. Thank you, Crystal. Public involvement policy, and that is a federal requirement. And per our public involvement policy, we develop specific public participation plans for our different planning efforts. And so to be consistent with our adopted public involvement policy, we developed a public participation plan this TIP development cycle. So that's why you're seeing that. It is a new element for us. We just hope that it helps to articulate to any readers, including the public, our process for engaging with the public during the TIP development process. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Another question is on page 106, it's where it shows like the STP, STBGP funding that we anticipate coming in. And that shows the 21.5 million that we approved last summer. But in the constraint table, it's showing the higher number because of the funding you guys described last time that was discovered on the books. I'm just wondering if it should be annotated in the constraint table why these two items don't match, because it's a significant difference in STP funding.
Thank you, Ms. Skinner, Mr. Chair, if I may, and Mr. Barrett, if you're on the call, you might want to help me with this one, but in the meantime, Crystal, if you'd mind scrolling down, please, on that table to the later fiscal years. Thank you. Oh, I guess I can control this. Sorry, I'll just go ahead and control it. Great. So Ms. Skinner, we're talking about this table here, the 21.5 million.
Yeah, so those estimated revenues they don't match what's on a couple pages down where we do the constraint analysis.
A loud mouse, sorry. There we go. And so you're saying, oh, this additional, this number here for fiscal year 22?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Baird, I think you've addressed this question previously. Do you mind responding to this one, please?
I'd have to take a look at the, I'd have to take a closer look. So we're talking about the fiscal year 22 revenues?
Correct.
The 21 million, and it doesn't match. Scroll up again, Jamie, please. And we're saying it doesn't match the estimated. Okay, yeah. So we should just adjust that upwards to 21.5 down on the constraint table. The extra money, the extra discovered money are actually revenues from 2020. So I'm not sure that it should be reflected in 2021. But the 21.5 that's in this current table that we're looking at should be reflected on the table below.
Okay. I just think it should be annotated to if somebody was reading, it doesn't really tell the story of that funding.
Yes.
It'd be helpful.
Yep, we can add a footnote there.
Yes, we can do that.
And then, the last item just on this page, I know RTA board, it's their responsibility to set the policy for the RTA funding, but there's $20 million of RTA that we're leaving unprogrammed for fiscal year 22. So our understanding is there'll be a notice of supplemental funding sometime in the fall or spring. So is that when this 20.2 million will be programmed?
Mr. Chair, yeah, Jim DeGroot again. Yeah, that's our expectation. We're working on that. We also recognize that in the current fiscal year, we're going to realize more money than we had budgeted for as well. So that is not currently reflected in this. We'll wait until we have actuals, and then our expectation is that we would make a call for projects available. And at that point in time, we can deal with those projects that are in need of additional funds, such as the project that Ms. Alarcon mentioned earlier, the Downtown Links project. So there would be funding available for it.
Great. And I thought of one last question. Thank you. Sorry to drag this on.
More.
There were two overall work program projects that I wanted to just bring up because this is the first time we're seeing it in the tip. One is the name change from the Travel Demand Management Program to the Commuter Services Assistance Program. And I'm just wondering what prompted that rebranding?
Yes, I was going to try to scroll to it, but I can answer that question in the meantime. Thank you, Ms. Skinner, Mr. Chair. So we want to make sure that as we spend our funding for those different programs, that we correctly allocate the funding to either the federal funds or the grants we get from ADEQ. We get a grant for the travel reduction program from ADEQ. Most of the commuter services is federally funded. So we've had in the past situation where there could be some confusion between TDM and TRP because they're very close in terms of the acronym, and they're only one in our internal accounting. They're only one digit different in terms of the account codes. So by creating a new name that's very different and distinct, it helps us to make sure that we correctly manage those funds.
But in terms of the scope of what's delivered, do we anticipate changes? It's just a naming convention change only?
Yes. Yep. It's just to my understanding, it's just a fix for us that we avoid any confusion between programs that have some similarities and have had a similar name, but the scope of the activities under commuter services is not changing to my knowledge. But I open it up for others from staff to add to that if they'd like. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Any further questions, Ms. Skinner?
Yeah, one last one. The regional pavement management system, which gets a little less than $500,000 a year of regional funding. I know pretty much every jurisdiction is spending a lot of money trying to get our roads up to the condition that the public expects and that we'd like them to be. This hasn't had a working group meeting in some years. I know we at the county have put tremendous effort into rating all of our roads and experimenting with different surface treatments. And I think it would be really helpful moving forward that we have a forum where we discuss if the $500,000 we're spending a year, we're getting what we need out of that as a region. So I just want to put that forward as we should be looking to meet with that program instead of just spending the money moving forward.
All right, thank you. Who's running this program? Ms. Castano, is that you?
It's currently being run by Rick Ellis at this point. And Ms. Skinner is correct. The group hasn't been pulled together in quite some time. We also know that there is going to be a likely shift in the future as we're seeing ADOT and some of the larger state DOTs migrate to data collection as a service rather than maintaining their own data collection vehicle and instruments and staff and whatnot. So there are certainly some substantial conversations that will need to happen in the future. There's no doubt about that.
Do you know if that $500,000 that to cover the services for that van, the regional van?
It does indeed. That is what it does, Mr. Chair. The services and the staffing allocations for collecting and processing the data and delivering it to the local agencies and to ADOT as well.
Thank you. All right. So we'll bring that to the table later on. Any further questions for the group? Anybody? All right, well, this is an action item. Can I entertain a motion? Anybody?
I'll move a motion for it with the caveat that the questions that were raised today are provided. I mean, I'm sorry, Jamie, Catherine set a really high bar for all of us. We make sure we'll meet it from now on and we'll all do the same thing. So thank you, Catherine. But with some of the things that we've raised, I would like some resolution on that before we submit and move forward to the management committee for approval.
Just to be clear, is that the modifications that Mr. Brown went over?
It would be, yes, with the ones that the Pima County sent in, as well as the two items that we requested, understanding that the downtown links is going to be a TIP amendment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a motion to approve, is that correct? With the conditions?
Correct.
All right.
Well,
is there a second?
Hi, Jose. We second.
Is that you, Anna?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second on the floor. Any discussions, questions? Mr. Brown.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as staff, I don't know if I can speak here, but I think I'd like to make sure I'm clear about what the conditions are as we move forward so that we make sure that expectations are met as part of this action. So I heard a couple of things from the city of Tucson. There was a concern about the funding for downtown links. And I think Mr. DeGrood said that, that would need to be processed later on as a TIP amendment. So I don't know that anything can be really addressed as part of this particular tip, if I understand it correctly, but anyone please correct me. And then the second thing was, or actually three things. I heard interest in HSIP funding.
Correct.
That was not part of the NOFA memo, that HSIP funding would be available. Certainly always interested in finding ways to.
Right. So what we would like is those dollars added to the tip for 23 and 24 because they have been approved. So we want to see them added to the tip. So we would want to see that improve, that change on the tip. And then the other one in reference to the data signals, the 42,000, I'm sorry, that's put into 2022. We would like to see it spread out over the 5 years, or at 150,000 if you want to leave the 742, because we'll have no problem with that. But we want to make sure that there's 150,000 that continues throughout the rest of the tip years.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Awesome. From our staff, I'd like to see if, does anyone have any concerns about just procedurally or policy, if there's any issues with those recommendations? Mr. Barrett, from your historical knowledge, some issues, Carolyn, Ms. Flory.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. So it sounds like there are some HSIP dollars that are available that should be added to the tip in fiscal, I wrote 23 and 22 and 23, is that correct?
It's 23 and 24.
23 and 24.
HSIP, those have been approved.
Yeah, HSIP is entirely a competitive process controlled by the state. So if the state has approved them, there's no reason we can't add those to the tip.
Okay, thank you. And then traffic signal funding 39.81, spreading out the funding over 5 years, 150,000 for the out years of the tip.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brown, I believe the intent in doing this in this fashion was to obligate them with the first year and then be able to disperse them over a period of time at the $150,000 a year rate. Was not our intention to short that program. If that is a problem, we'll have to address it.
Mr. Chair, this is Dave Atler.
Mr.
If I may, yeah, a couple of clarifications, if I can ask the city on the 750 spread out over the 5 years. Do you have a preference? Obviously, as long as it's a minimum of 150, do you have a preference of how it's distributed? And we can work on that with you offline. And the HSIP is, I think we've said that those will be shown. And if you could confirm with us the amounts that have been awarded, that would be great.
We will get you the confirmation on the HSIP as far as the confirmation of the awarded amount. And then Dave, I can give you a call and we can talk through how we would like that distributed over the 5 year period.
Excellent. That sounds great. I appreciate that.
I just want to make sure that that's going to be included in the tip.
It will be.
And I also would just like to point out, I appreciate Mr. DeGroo's explanation about the tip amendment and downtown links and everything, but the city still continues to take the position that the tip should reflect what it costs to complete the projects, not necessarily what the ballot amount is. So
understood, but yeah, but until
I just want that on record.
Yeah, okay. But we have to make it clear that until the IGA has been executed, it can't be reflected in the tip.
So
in these cases.
So Dave, can we move forward with getting the IGA done?
You know, Jim mentioned what the process was, so I'd ask him to restate that, please.
No, I understand. I heard what Jim said. I don't have a problem. I just would like to move it forward because we do know what the cost is. That is shortfall, and so we're kind of ready to move the IGA forward. So I got a meeting with Jim on Friday, so I'll speak a little bit more in detail with him about that on Friday. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so you guys are going to work out the details as far as the IGA goes. I thought there was already an IGA, but okay.
Not yet, but we'll get one. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And if I'm, Mr. Chair, yeah, thank you. So the final other adjustment that I heard today would be from Pima County, adding a footnote to the fiscal constraint table to explain the differences between the funding amount for SDBG in fiscal year 22 in that table versus the prior table. So those are the things that I heard. So thank you for the opportunity to clarify.
And thank you, Jamie, for adding that. So yes, I left that out and I didn't mean to. So thank you for adding that as to the motion. I'll take that as a friendly adjustment.
All right, guys, any further questions, discussions? Anybody? Okay, so we have a motion and a second and it stands. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, all those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, motion carries. Items approved. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 5, adjournment.
I make a motion.
All right, Beth. Thank you. Second.
I second. This is Anna.
All right, thank you, Anna. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. We are officially adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.